Okay, welcome everybody to the Monday, April 11th, 2022 PVC meeting. And we've got 4 main topics tonight. And we will start with the first housekeeping item, which is the approve the minutes. Everybody's read them, and I would ask for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Richard, great. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gene. Okay. As we are a virtual meeting, we will do the roll call, full vote through roll call. So I will start with, if there's any questions. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll go through the roll call. Richard?
Richard, we can't hear you.
Hear me?
Now
Yes.
we can. Oh,
Okay. Aye.
there we go.
Great, thank you. Erwin?
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, with that, there is, it looks like John is in the, Chief Schlittler is in the attendees, maybe you can get him
Oh,
in.
okay.
And we will then move to the first main topic, which is the public safety complex, and we'll turn that over to you, Ken.
Yeah, all right, let me get the share screen going here. Yeah. All right. Still working on punch list items at both Station 2 and Fire Headquarters. At Fire Headquarters, they're raising structures this week. We'll be doing paving, landscaping next week, and final pave and striping the week after that. And that will substantially complete all the remaining work. There's still some odds and ends rolling in, stuff we're still waiting for, but nothing major at this point. Things are complete up at the temp, waiting on the final as-built. I received the draft this afternoon. Miles and I will review that tomorrow, and hopefully we can finalize that for submission to planning as part of the Hillside use for school admin. So any questions on the schedule and the work?
Yeah, just quickly on the paver stones, the sidewalks are all done, or is that still to be finished? When you're saying
Yeah, a couple of electrical pieces to go in the front, but the plaza is essentially complete with the exception of landscaping. All right, ACL, you can see it here on the screen. The Griffin claim, nothing new on that. Miles responded to them back in February and have heard nothing in the interim. Pavement markings are new on this from the last time. We had a request from PD to mark some of the spaces with the cruiser numbers. And so that's what that is. And the rest of the items were on the list last month. We're trying to work our way through these items. Questions there?
Yeah, so the pavement marking is the only new one?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, that being said, I guess we can move to the voting items, Stuart.
Okay. We've got several tonight. They'll be grouped together by budget category. I believe we need to do the PSS first and then the change order.
Yeah, you can. We're not being billed for the work under the PSS, but you can go in order that way. That's fine.
Okay. So the first one is for the PSS 49. For KBA, it's the police department artwork for $8,664.70 coming out of the architecture budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon, looks like you joined.
Aye.
Thank you. And the chair is aye. Okay. The next item is the change order from Consigli. Change order number 39. Do you want to go to that, Ken, and just say if there's anything that we want to review first?
No, everything on here, we, actually, the Plaza Box stone is new from last month. We had to do some drainage stone around one of the electrical circuits. So that's what that is. The rest of it's stuff that's been on there.
Any questions? Okay, so I'll put forth the change order number 39 for $26,784 coming out of the general contracting budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jean. Any questions? Hearing none.
Yes. What was the amount again?
26,784.
So it's-
I got a typo, Erwin.
so it is 26. It's 26,784.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm looking at a different sheet, that's why. Okay, great. Any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon.
Aye.
Great, and the chair is aye. Okay. The next invoice is for Consigli Construction requisition number 39 through March 2022 for $337,918.52 coming out of the general contracting budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
You, Richard. Any questions?
Another typo.
Yes.
Okay.
My fat fingers on Friday weren't working too good, Erwin.
That's all right. It's a Friday.
The match is here, 337-718.
I thought you said 918.
Oh, then it's my mistake. Erwin, you didn't catch me.
All I questioned was what the right amount was.
$337,718.52. Just
Your
to be
fingers
clear.
are okay after all.
Only one of them was fat, Erwin. The second one was okay.
All
There
right,
you
good.
go. And I believe, am I correct, Richard? You seconded.
I think I made the motion.
Thanks.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing, come to roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon.
Aye.
Okay. The next invoice is KBA for March 2022 services for $6,250 coming out of the architecture budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon.
Aye.
Chair's eye. Okay. All right. The next set of invoices are three of them coming out of the miscellaneous budget. First one is Needham Police for details on in November and December for $1,843. Excuse me, $1,848. Another invoice from Needham Police for February details for $1,484 coming in miscellaneous budget. And the last of the three is Wrist Frost Shumway commissioning for Fire Station 2, February 2022 for $910. Total of invoices of $4,242. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Gene,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay, we have 6 invoices grouped together for the technology budget. First one is Cybercom for the door controls of Fire Station 2, $12,442. Forgive me, $12,445. Second one is Munchin Smart Shot booking camera, $3,995. Third invoice is Harbor Networks, 20 Connect onsite courtesy and 5 essential licenses, $2,467.25. Next one is Okers for audio visual equipment and installation for $625. Next invoice is also Okers. Audio visual equipment installation, $15,312. And the last of the 6 is HID Global for the police department fingerprinting equipment for $1,964.80. Total of $36,809.05, all coming out of the technology budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Gene,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
Chair is aye. The final 2 invoices grouped together for FF&E budget. First one is Mohawk Lifts, vehicle lifts, $1,400. Next one is DeBurrow for key and asset lockers, $41,465 for a total of $42,865 coming out of the FF&E budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Gene,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Chief Schlittler,
Aye.
Chief Condon,
Aye.
Chair is aye. With that, that is all the invoices. Catherine and Ken on the public safety.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other topics, Ken?
Nope.
Okay,
Sorry if you covered this before, but I had a quick question.
go ahead, George.
When is the front entryway going to be completed? It looks like it hasn't had a lot of activity over the last week or
It-
two.
They're waiting on the landscaping. They're digging plants this week. So they'll start installing landscaping next week.
Okay.
Okay, great. If there is no more questions, I will recommend that we close this topic and say thank you to the user group, the architects, construction team. We'll move to the next item,
Great, thank you.
and that is the hillside renovation for Emery Grover. And I turn that to you, Hank.
Yes, thank you, Stuart. Perhaps I will share my screen. I don't know if people had a chance to go through the agenda that was sent around. Let me see, where do I share? Full screen. Share screen. There we go.
Is before you go too far, is Michael or Ann in? Yeah, can you let Michael in, Catherine?
I'm not sure how to do that when you're sharing screens. I don't see the. Wait.
Shall I
let me see.
stop sharing
Oh,
for a
wait, here.
moment?
Wait, no, I've got it. Let me,
Okay, great. I don't see Ann in.
I see
Michael's
Michael.
there.
Okay. Anne said she was attending, so
Keep an eye out. Okay, go ahead, Mike, Hank.
So Hillside School, we received filed sub bids. And I will jump to the tabulation sheet, but the results of that were that we actually received bids that were under the estimated costs for both fire protection and HVAC. However, we received no electrical filed sub bids. Under Chapter 149, that gives us two options. First of which is to rebid the electrical. And the second option is to add an addendum that provides the scope to the GC, the electrical scope to the GC to include in their bid. And that's our preferred direction. The reason being that it would give the GCs the ability to select a company that they are comfortable working with and hopefully could be more competitive in terms of price. So I can share those attachments. If you can see that as well. We also were curious as to why Carlisle did not submit a number for the CPVC piping for the sprinkler heads. And after discussion with the architect and the architect with the engineer, appears as though they would not do it with PVC. They would refuse to do it with PVC. And so their number is what it is. And their number for the PVC was 0, so it would not be any less. Given the differential of 14,000, our feeling is that we proceed with not accepting the alternate number 1. We have done so with advertising this or putting this in as an addendum today. On the HVAC, the number of 225 was clearly the low bidder. The architect and engineer have reached out to that file sub bidder to confirm that they have everything within the scope. And Walter, I think you're on. I don't know if you have any further update at the end of the day today.
I don't have an update.
This was published and obviously it's advantageous to the town to accept that bid, but we have not heard if they will claim that they made a mathematical error. And they will see all of the other bids with the addendum. In terms of the electrical, we are including that as part of the proposed GC bid. We did review it with the AG's office. And we're heading in that direction, which we think is the correct direction. And Walter, you were able to post that today with Project Dog.
Yes, it was posted.
So our next step will be to have the walkthrough. We added an additional walkthrough so that the GCs could bring their electrical engineers by. That'll occur this Thursday. And then the bids, the GC bids are due a week from Thursday. And we would report those to the committee at the next meeting on the 26th, Tuesday, the 26th. Any questions about that?
We've had experience with Snowden, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and decent experience.
Right. So are we allowed to talk to them about their bid?
Well, the architect and the engineer have called them. And we don't know, but the question that was raised was, did you include everything that was part of the bid? And so we haven't heard back from them to see if they did some miscalculation.
They know the other bids and they know they're low bidder, right?
They now know it, yes, because this addendum was published today.
So what's to
They-
stop them from just raising their price below the other three?
No, they submitted a bid. They have to stick with their bid. We have a bid bond. And their only recourse at this point is to say, well, we had a mathematical error and show it to us and back out. That would be their only recourse at this time. And if they do that, then the next lowest bidder would be Davison Company.
And that would be 340.
Yeah, so it'd be, quite an uptick.
115,000 worth, yeah.
Hi, sweetheart.
Sorry.
Well, I certainly think Snowden can do the job without any trouble.
Yeah, I just hope they didn't misread the drawings, or I don't know. So
All right.
we'll see, and if we hear any clarification from them, we'll have to post yet another addendum.
Yep.
And clearly any general bidders would take the low bidders associated with this. And the people, the GCs who have taken up the drawings are names that are familiar to us from other projects. But we don't know whether they will actually bid at this point.
How many GCs are there?
5, I believe. So Rogan, who did the work on the high school cafeteria. Mills Corporation out of Rhode Island came through the prior walkthrough. I think Moran, is it? I don't have all those names in front of me.
Tower Construction was one of them, and JJ Cardosi was another one.
All right, one other question regarding Carlisle. Carlisle's got a lot of experience in fire protection systems. Why were they so adamant about not wanting to use, I mean, it's not customary to use PVC, but why did they not want to do it at all?
They didn't refuse. They just don't see any benefit on their end of using CPVC. It has more liability issues for them.
I see.
That's how they explained it to me.
Do they think it's not an acceptable approach?
No, they did not say that.
That's interesting.
It's just how they work. They prefer to use black iron.
Yeah. Well, it's a better system for sure, but they're a quality firm. I'm just a little surprised that they wouldn't even bid it.
Walter, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded to me like they have had problems previously with joints coming undone with PVC piping, and their insurance company has indicated that issue with them.
Something to that effect.
So
But
are
they say what they still will do it.
they
if
still
we
low
if we
bidder?
ask.
They're essentially low bidder, right?
Well, no, if we
that's not
accepted alternate number one, then Excel would be $14,321 less expensive.
Yep.
If we accepted that. But given the fact that we don't know how long this building will stand, the black iron, I think, is a preferable solution. And certainly worth the $14,000. It would be the difference between these two.
Richard, do you have your hand up or are you?
Well, I did. I think my questions have been answered by George's questions. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Any further questions on this?
I don't see any.
Stuart, I can speak to the schedule and the issue of the chairs meeting, or you can.
Yeah, I might just preface to everybody that there was a chairs meeting on last week prior to the finance committee, and the chairs meeting that Dan and Kate requested, really from the Dan perspective, was just to sort of put all the pieces on the table, more from an Emery Grover perspective. So it might be more appropriate to have that conversation, Hank, at that point. But the question is really in terms of getting positioned to the warrant article, the 19.9 approximately that the warrant article is for, and going with the cost estimates that we had reviewed last meeting, and how the cost estimates potentially are higher overall than the cost that's currently within the warrant. So with that said, I'll leave that there, Hank, because I think we probably should have this conversation more around the Emery Grover piece of it, which is the next.
Yeah, I was going to jump to Emery Grover. And so the question that came back out of that chairs meeting was a recommendation not to increase the warrant article by the $2 million that had been presented as the differential at the last discussion we had with the PPPC based upon the design development drawings. And the request was, could we get the bids in hand prior to special town meeting in order to be able to determine a more exact amount associated with that warrant article. As you recall, that $2 million difference increased due to a variety of issues, but mainly associated with MEP escalation and a variety of other escalations within the detailed bid. The question back to BH+A was, could they accelerate the construction documents so that we could be going out to bid by the 1st of September of this year? And I think after reviewing their schedule, Deborah, you can speak to that as appropriate, but the indication was, yes, that was possible, but we would end up eliminating the 90% CD cost estimate and only have the 50% CD cost estimate. to be the indicator as we head into the bidding. Then this meeting, this schedule with the release of documents on the 1st of September would give us filed subbids back on the 22nd of September and the final GC bids due back on the 6th of October, enabling us to then bring that to the PBBC by the 11th of October in advance of the town meeting, which is tentatively proposed on the 24th.
And I would just add, Hank, if I may, just another perspective is that, and I would like to hear from the architects, but this is in a compression of about 45 days of the bids. So we have to compress the level of effort to get the bids out and get a response for the timeline that Hank just has shown. The other thing is that the reason this has been being sort of pushed is that the finance committee, a few of them feel that given where the design documents, cost estimates are, is that there's still some unknowns and it's not as a sure thing, for lack of a better word, for the estimates. They prefer to see us get a bids back because then they can go to town meeting, whether the bids are lower or higher, but particularly if they are higher, it can be presented to the town meeting with an amendment potentially to increase the full vote. So everybody gets a full picture of the cost of the project versus going right now and then having bids come post town meeting, which could come up higher, and not wanting to wait till next May to get the full thing bid. And I think that there might be a constraint from the town funding to be able to bond everything. I don't suggest we get into the financial elements of the town and how they do it, but just quite simply, finance committee representatives were pushing more for getting the bids and wanted more discipline in the process, quite frankly. And that's, I think, a reasonable ask. I don't know what happened Wednesday night, Hank, in terms of the finance committee, but I think I'd like to get that in front of the committee now, is what the finance committee, when they met after we had the chairs committee, the chairs meeting, what came out of the finance committee. But also, I think what's important for this committee is to hear from the architects and the ability to actually compress. I would just say there's a little caution in the wind in terms of, to me, a week of compression is not too bad, but 45 days with the complexity of the project really puts a lot of pressure on getting a lot of different things put in place. And, we do run the risk of a few things getting missed or a few things in the mad dash being perfected, which, we know can cause change orders. That could be acceptable, it may not be. So I think, Hank, those two things are on the table. I would think it'd be important for this committee to hear from the architects on the ability to compress and what that really means.
So Deborah, are you there? Do you want to
So,
speak
yeah,
to that?
oh, yes. And certainly we understand the benefit of having the bids in hand rather than just going by the cost estimate. So, we understand the need, and, we can work with that. I mean, of course, more time gives you more ability to get more detail into the documents, but I think we can have the scope in a biddable set of documents. I think the unknowns are going to be the unknowns regardless of the time spent on the documents. I think we know how to prioritize getting the information for bidding onto the set, and so it is what it is. I'm not going to say it's no problem. I mean, it'll make it more difficult, but we think it's doable.
the other point that members of the FinCom were making is that if in fact escalation is at 1% per month, that there is incentive to get the documents out on the street as soon as possible to avoid that further escalation. In terms of the long term, the other advantage of an award in early November is that it would, while the contractor couldn't take the building until the 1st of December in 2023, it would give the contractor 2 months to do their submittals for review and get long lead items on order as soon as possible. And as we found in this market today, the supply chain issues are a fairly large factor in the cost associated with construction. So there are those advantages, and I think that Ken and I are committed to working with Deborah and the BH+A team to get responses back promptly from the user group. And at this point, I believe the floor plans are pretty much firm, which allows BH+A to coordinate with their engineers. So we're not in, I think the school committee or school board is restricting any further changes at this point, which is always a good issue or a good opportunity. If we didn't take this approach, the other prior schedule would have put receipt of bids back into November, end of November. And if we were then to ask for town meeting to be delayed, we would have to ask town meeting to be delayed all the way until December.
There's a question from George and then Michael.
Well, as I looked at the schedule, well, number one, let me express my concern. I think that your engineering documents, drawings and specs are far better when they're done on the normal schedule than when they're shortened by a 45-day compression. I think that you're basically buying risk. You're essentially saying it's worth the risk to get this done, to have and I'm not going to say it's incomplete or it's poor, but there's no question that drawings and specs are going to be better, and people are going to be looking at them. All the various groups that interface with each other are going to be looking at them a lot more when they're done in the normal schedule than when they're done in the compressed schedule. So in essence, what you're doing is you're putting them out there, you're allowing contractors to bid on this, and they can just come back and say, look, you know, the detail wasn't in the spec or on the drawing, and we know there's a risk associated with it. Or we would, on most jobs, we just stop at 50% and go out for bids. The reason we complete it is to make the bid spec and the documents as good as they possibly can be. And everybody knows that a tight spec and a tight set of drawings, it gives you the best cost estimate. So what we're doing is saying we'll do okay with that cost estimate based on 50% drawings, and I have a problem with that. And if you let the process play out, you could probably ask the town to have a special town meeting in February to get this and get bids back in and present it to town meeting in February. without losing a lot of time and without incurring a lot of costs. That's my feeling.
Thanks, George. Michael?
I think the concern, I wasn't able to get to the finance committee meeting and haven't talked to Dan specifically, but he reported back that they clearly wanted to go ahead with the money. They never want to ask for more money until they know exactly how much it's going to be. I think a big question is what's the reasonable time frame? And I'm listening to George, and this is a little newer to me. I haven't done a lot of these projects at this level of detail, but we want to go back to the town once for the money that we need. We also want to make sure they know that we're going to need more money, even if we don't ask for it in May. And is it reasonable to wait till February? Town's not going to want to do a February town meeting if they can help it. How much risk are we putting in by trying to accelerate things so we can have a request for the October town meeting?
Deborah, do you want to?
I think we heard the answer to that from Deborah before, that, yeah, they can do it, but recognize that you're going out for bids with 50% drawings.
Well, and then, but then do you have to make the case, if you're going to do that, to make very clear to the community that your information isn't as good. Maybe you ask for more than you think you're going to need to cover for that. I don't know, but it does concern me, obviously.
Well, if I may, in any renovation, there will be unknowns that we don't know, regardless how many months we put into the construction documents. We don't uncover some of those issues until we get into the construction stage. I do have to say that the design development drawings that were developed by BH+A were very strong. Clearly, the structural engineer has put a lot of thought into that design. And George, I think you also looked at those drawings. And there's a good basis for that information. We will be going out doing some additional testing shortly underneath the slab to determine if there's an issue of oil underneath the building from that prior oil spill. But you never truly know until you start working on the project. We're trying to eliminate as many of those unknowns as possible. And the structural engineer did a very thorough evaluation of the exterior envelope of the building. And that was also reflected in the masonry section of the design development drawings. So will they be perfect if we go to bid on September 1st? Will they be better? Yes. If we go to bid on the prior schedule, which would have put it at October 20th. Yes, that is an acceleration. That's the 45 days we're talking about. George, I really don't know whether a special town meeting, whether it could occur in December. We would know the information by December, but that may be an unacceptable date for
that's too close to the other one. They're not going to move the whole town meeting till December for this project. That's for sure. At least I don't think so.
I think it's the additional monies that might be that question.
Just a comment about the structural drawings. They definitely were far superior to any structural drawings that you normally get at that stage of the project. So I have a lot more confidence that the structural engineer has looked at the building very carefully.
Okay, Erwin, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I've got two comments / questions. The second one is related to what Hank just said about oil under the building. But my first comment was, I want to know, does the finance committee recognize that by accelerating the design, there will be clearly an increased risk, and we may be paying more than we might have expected to pay had we followed the normal design path that was originally sent out. Are they aware of what the risks are for doing this? I'm just trying to get a sense
yeah.
of who was at the meeting.
Yeah, so the chairs meeting, I voiced a couple of concerns. One, they wanted to go to bid without the appropriation, as they're trying to do now. And I think the concern is how good would the bidding environment be if we know we hadn't passed anything yet? That could be debatable. Also, in compressing the time, Ken was there, Hank was there, I was there. Hank was on the phone, but we did voice the concern around compressing time. And it's not just a week, but the amount of time and the risk we could have in the documents. I think that the one thing that I did voice to Dan and a few others is that, and I would seek the committee's commentary if needed. I said the committee is not going to exercise an acceleration without somebody asking for it outside of us. I think it's a little bit presumptuous on our part. I think we're trying to do the right thing like we've always done. And I think it's somebody outside because we may incur additional costs because of it. So I just wanted to add that bit, Erwin.
Yeah, well, does the finance committee recognize what the downside is of accelerating the schedule? I mean, it's fine that they would like this, and it makes things maybe easier for them to support what the appropriation will be, but are they aware of the additional uncertainty that will eventually happen by doing this? Did you get a sense that they were aware of this, or that this is just what they would like to see?
It's only my opinion. I think they heard us. I don't think they wanted to accept anything and digest that, but they have to speak for themselves. I think that they're more concerned and have a stronger belief that getting to bid has a better outcome of where the costs will be than what our detailed design cost estimates were.
Okay.
And that's where I leave it. And I don't know, Hank, if there was any further conversation on the finance committee meeting. If you can comment on that at all.
Well, they did request an update after the 50% cost estimate was done, to see where we were tracking. And that really would lead us into the draft of the warrant article. And there was speculation, is it going to be double the number that we're currently talking about? Or is it, where is it going to fall? Particularly in light of the variability of the current market. And so, yes, I think everyone wants to have the number in hand, and nobody wants to come back twice to town meeting. We might be able, depending on where the bids come in, we might be able to award with the monies in hand, assuming the 19.4 million is approved. But it would not give us adequate contingency to take the project all the way through.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify one thing, because I may have, it may be clear to everybody, but I might have confused it. But part of the topic was whether to actually not go forward with the warrant article. Hank, you did say it earlier that the agreement is to go with the current article. I think the key is that can we get to a point where if the warrant article in this town meeting coming up with the 19 plus gets approved, the bidding environment and everything that gets into the driver into the October is to be able to address any gap that might be there. And there is an intention to make sure town meeting is aware of the bidding environment, and the warrant article potentially, the bidding may come back given the environment, higher, and we may have to address it at October meeting. And I just want to make sure everybody understood that we're still going forward with they still want to go forward with the warrant article. It's just a question of trying to, comprehend any gap. There was a request not to do the warrant article, and that's where I felt, without knowing there's some approval by the town to go forward with this project, I don't think the bidding environment would be as competitive and focus on what we're doing unless we have that warrant article. But just my commentary, folks.
Could I ask my second question?
Yeah, go ahead, Erwin. Sorry.
Hank, you mentioned something about oil under the building, and I guess I don't recall that there could be an issue, but there's ways to do investigations at relatively low cost before you get into the project itself to kind of get ahead of any major environmental concern. So I don't know if you have any more information or if I missed something about what you meant by oil under the building.
So there's an AUL that's associated with the building currently. And that was related to an oil spill from an underground oil tank that was in the back of the building. I think it was back when Chip Laffey was still here. That oil tank was removed. The soils around that tank were remediated, and they did testing within the building, air quality testing within the building, and they did drill a hole or two through the slab, and all of that indicated that the building was safe to occupy. It didn't hit any thresholds that would cause concern, but because the AUL was filed as part of the deed, it requires further testing and a plan for addressing any soils issues prepared by an LSP, and then review during construction, testing during construction regarding air quality within the building as part of a health safety plan. So BH+A is proceeding in that direction. We are, they are bringing on board an LSP that would be acceptable to the town. And we hope to do that additional testing within the next month.
Okay, so you will have more. So you will have more information about what's there in the vicinity of where the AUL is.
Yes, yes, and the strategy was to use a smaller drill bit, maybe a 2-inch drill bit, go down through the slab to a certain depth below the slab, take PID readings real time, and then follow up with some soil testing and work our way from the areas that are potentially most impacted away from those until we find, no impact.
Okay, and then whoever is brought on board will have to handle what to do legally about the AUL.
Yes.
Because that's going to be disturbed, apparently, what you're saying, by the construction.
Yes, we do need to add additional footings, structural footings, and we need to dig down to put in the elevator.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That clarifies in my mind what you had mentioned earlier. Thank you.
So with that, Hank, I think unless you have other commentary, I would just seek commentary from the committee about the acceleration. I believe we have a select board meeting next Wednesday, correct? Or I'm sorry, this Wednesday, sorry.
This Wednesday.
I'd just like to get a sense from the committee, if the question is asked to the committee of whether we would support acceleration and carry it forward, would we? So I would just like to ask, the committee that's here tonight, just to sort of, would you support an acceleration compression or not support it? Because I think that might be asked on the select board meeting. And I think it's only appropriate that the select board, after talking to Dan, would be the ones that request us to carry that forward if need be. So with that, if I could just ask a couple of committee members to speak up in terms of they support it or not support it. Erwin?
I don't think it's a good idea. But I understand what the finance committee is trying to do. I just think from an engineering, from a architectural, from a professional perspective, I don't think it's a good idea.
George?
Erwin, the only comment I would make is, so if we go with the schedule and not compress the 45 days, but continue on the estimate until, we will be able to. What was
George,
that
you're
date
breaking up.
again, Hank?
You were kind of breaking up there, George.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay, so what is the schedule for getting bids if we didn't compress the drawings and spec schedule? 45 days. When would we get bids?
Instead of going out to bid on the 1st of September, we would go out to bid in mid-October, and the bids would be back prior to Thanksgiving in November. So we wouldn't have.
We would miss town meeting.
We would miss town meeting, yes, as currently scheduled. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Any comment, George?
Well, if we accelerate the schedule, but the only way that I would agree to accelerate the schedule, I think it is a good idea to have the bids in hand and go to town meeting, no question about that. But if we accelerate the schedule, what I would want to do is make sure that we had additional contingency on top of whatever the, owner's contingency, on top of whatever the bids would be, to make sure that we have a bucket of cash there to deal with issues that might come up because of the fact that we bid the job at essentially a 50% level. So I would feel better if we had an additional contingency to do that. If it means otherwise, essentially, if we don't have a special town meeting in February, then we're likely to not get this passed until next May, which essentially delays this by 6 months.
The comment you bring up about the contingency, just for the committee, when we had the chairs meeting, the FinCom folks had commented that we have a significant contingency in this project. We talked a bit about.
In the cost estimate right now, yes.
There's four different contingencies, and it felt that there was a significant amount. So I think we just have to be aware that the contingency is always a hot topic, but not to solve it here, just be aware that that's, and I know what you're saying, George, is that when we go towards, compressing, we need to ensure not just the contingency, but probably a little bit more. But anyways, okay, with that, can I just move along to Richard? Any comment from you on it?
Sure, I'm hearing both. I certainly can appreciate both arguments, both Erwin's concerns about the risks that are involved. I think George's concerns about wanting additional contingency. I would note that it's not unprecedented to schedule an extra special town meeting in December. We did have one a number of years ago. It was not involving a capital project, however, it involved the TripAdvisor tax situation. But it was a meeting that was scheduled because of the exigency of the circumstance. So it is possible to do it. I'm not saying it's advisable, but it can be done. So so we really have to just kind of think about how we want to proceed. I guess I mean, I certainly am sympathetic to what the FinCom is saying. And I'm just trying to weigh the competing arguments here, and I really have not come up with a decision yet, determination. I am uncomfortable with the risk of going out to bid with a 50% document, however, and that's weighing on my mind at the moment.
All right, and Jean? Jean, any comments regarding the compressing schedule for bid? Okay, he's on mute. I'm not sure he's going to come off. Just in the interest of time, we're sort of over on Hillside and Emery Grover. I think that the select board meeting, we'll find out where we stand in there and then determine from there. I don't think there's anything else we need to do, Hank, regarding this project other than one invoice.
Yeah, in the agenda, we also did get a preliminary energy report back. And I don't need to go through that in detail. But just want to point out that the cost benefit, I'll share this portion. Where'd that go? There we go. That we are targeting an EUI, an energy use intensity of 30.0 kBTU, so thousands of BTU per square foot per year. The design that has currently been put forward at DD level is just barely below that, which is at 29.2. There are various options for increasing or improving that EUI. And there are some incentives, but there are difficulties associated with each one of these options. And I don't think we have to make a final decision on any of these tonight, but we do need to say yes or no very soon on whether a ground source heat pump is still in the equation. The ground source heat pump would give us the greatest benefit. However, the cost and the payback would likely be close to 100 years because in the initial estimate, the ground source heat pump was running in the range of $500,000 to $600,000. And the anticipated energy savings were, between $5,000 and $6,000 per year. So it doesn't seem to make sense to us at this time, but we would need to take that off the table soon if that's the case, or ask for that money at town meeting because it's above and beyond our current estimate. The exterior wall insulation and the triple glazing of the windows have architectural issues associated with them and are not recommended. There would be further exploration on roof insulation and maybe this reduced light power in density question, but those would come out of further detailed design during construction documents. Please read this. We can come back to the report at a later time unless you have specific questions about it.
Yeah, Richard has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. Hank, could you define at a very high level what energy use intensity is, the concept?
Yes, so you take the full energy, in this case, all the electrical energy that's used on an annual basis. And then you divide it by the square feet within the building. And that comes up with, and that energy that's used in this case would be lighting, would be the running the mechanical, anything that's electric in the building, so hot water, all of that. That's how you come up with this EUI, which is a standard metric now for evaluating energy efficiency. Michael, I'm sure you can tell us more about it.
Yeah, so hold on a second. So did you get your question answered, Richard, or you want to?
So the higher the KBTU, the per square foot per year, the better. Is that what you're?
The lower. I mean,
lower, right? Okay, yeah.
The lower. So in that report, I felt that the graph was helpful. This graph.
Yeah.
So if you take a general baseline building, renovated building, doesn't have a lot of improvements to it, you might get an EUI of 48. The proposed versus the code, current code, you might get a 34. And we're just underneath that 30 EUI with the proposed design at 29.4. If that I felt was a helpful metric for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then adding the ground source heat pumps would bring us only down by roughly 1.5 to 2 points. So the net benefit of that, even though there would be financial incentives from Eversource, we'll have to review those in greater detail with the architect.
And George has his hand up, and then Michael put his hand up. I don't know if Michael, you want to comment because Hank pointed to you, or you want to let George go and then you go.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, George.
George, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm still stuck on this whole issue of when to get an estimate by bidding, and the thing that's bothering me is that if we go out for bids on a compressed schedule, you're less likely to get the most accurate bid estimate or bid. However, if you're going to be picking up cost at a rate of growth of maybe a certain percentage a month because things are costing more, maybe it's better to go out for bids earlier with a lesser document, and recognize that if we do have a problem with the price, even though we got bids and it's costing us more, we can always go back and ask the town for more money. I don't want to do that if we don't have to, especially with bids in hand. But there may be a value in getting this on the street as soon as possible because of the fact that costs are escalating like crazy. Let's just, I'm weighing all the various options in my head. Normally I would agree with Erwin that it's better to do the job right and the way we normally do it. But in this case, it might have some merits to doing it a little bit earlier because of the cost of escalation. It's something to weigh. I don't know what the right answer is yet.
Michael?
Thank you, George. I think you made everything much more difficult, but I think it's a great point. No, the only thing I wanted to, I don't want to take time here, but I do want to follow up with Hank, because I think one of the things that the energy use intensity is kind of a sort of a challenging number to really understand in terms of how it helps us in terms of progress toward net zero and toward climate goals. And I think I want to follow up with Hank and just get a little more information, because although the 30 is a target for the Mass Save program, I don't know what that, how you really communicate to people in the community, and that's something people want to do. So maybe Hank, you and I can follow up and just get a little more information so we understand what are we really doing. Yes, it's going to be significantly better than not doing, the 48, but how good is it that we're doing this looking forward? So we can do that separately. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, Hank, anything else? Just in the interest of time, unless there's something really burning, can we wrap up?
Deborah, anything else that you want to bring up?
No, I think I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. So if there's no other comments, questions, I'm going to go right to the one item for invoice approval. If I can get it right here. Hold on a second. There is one item for the Emery Grover. It's an invoice for Project Dog Hillside Electronic Bid Hosting for $867.87 coming out of the miscellaneous budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, George. Any questions? Hear none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Ann,
That was an
chair is aye. I saw the eye. I saw the eye. It's being said, but we'll let you go on mute. All right.
Sorry.
That's no problem. With that, I think we are done with Emery Grover and the Hillside. Okay, thanks to the user group. Thanks everybody in the architects. Okay, I do have one additional voting item, if I may just stick with that before we go to the Pollard locker room. There's a invoice for Ridge Hill for Doran Whittier services through March 2022. I'd like to put that forth for approval. $30,000 coming out of the architecture budget. Again, it's the Ridge Hill demolition. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
chair is aye. Okay, great. Thanks. That closes out the invoices, Catherine.
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. All right, so we will turn our attention to the last main topic, which is the Pollard locker room. And do I turn to Barry? Do I turn to you, Hank?
Well, I'll ask Michelle and Barry to walk us through. Maybe Michelle, you can share your screen and take the committee through the work to date. Work to date has been done with Barry and with the building maintenance department. And since it escalated in cost, it falls into the PVPC lap. So Michelle, you want to take over?
I will. Can you promote Don to presenter as well so that he can join the conversation?
I did, but I guess he didn't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, maybe. I tried
I
again.
won't
Oh,
share
there,
my
there he
screen.
comes.
My apologies, I was multitasking.
And you can all see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just start there. All right. So it seems like forever ago, we were asked to go and take a look at the Pollard Middle School locker rooms and see what we could do to help improve them. And we sat down with the principal and the assistant principal, as well as Barry and his team, and came up with some design goals. They were to improve the safety and security of those locker rooms, improve inclusivity within the locker room, functionality and establish clean and easy to maintain locker rooms. I'm going to show you some examples of the existing locker rooms. Currently, they are outdated. Several areas do not meet ADA, they're in very poor condition. And the age of the material and the quality of the material makes it hard for it to be maintained and kept clean. So for those of you who haven't been to the Pollard locker room for quite a while, the coach's office sits out front, and from that area, it's a glass wall, so you can see the door, the entrance door. As people come in, you can also have an eye on the gymnasium doors. There are 2 single-user toilet rooms. Those are pretty much for public use. Anybody who's using the gymnasium for after-hours events can use those spaces. Within those spaces, there is a handicap stall, but the rooms themselves aren't fully accessible rooms. They don't meet all the qualifications for ADA or for MAAB. Then there's these 2 narrow hallways. One goes into each of the locker rooms. Once inside the locker rooms, there's an area for bathrooms and showers. The girls are on the left, the boys are on the right. From the boys' room, you can access the gym. And from the girls' room, there's an exit to a back hallway. And we believe that these are in place not because for easy access to the gymnasium, but actually because the locker rooms are so large that they require 2 means of exit. So some pictures of these spaces. So this is inside the coach's office. You can see that each the coaches have their own bathroom as well as their own showers. The coaches do tend to use the shower rooms, but the students do not. Within the single-use toilet rooms, you can see the age and condition of those rooms. You can see here the tiles are falling apart. They're not actually accessible within the space for some of the accessories that they have. And you can see that the materials are not well maintained, or I should say, actually better put, they are falling apart. They're hard to maintain. Within the locker rooms themselves, this is a glimpse of the hallways that access the locker rooms. Some of the materials within the locker rooms. This is the boys' locker room. This was taken a year ago this summer. So there were some spaces that were out of commission at the time, and you can get an idea of the age of some of the shower fixtures within the bathrooms as well. And then within the boys' locker room, we have some ceiling conditions happening here. You can see the windows and the screens, the floor is old. Within the girls' room, you have similar conditions within the ceiling. Things are due to a lot of the moisture within the air. The ceilings are bowing. The floors, they were hard to see within these pictures because they were cleaning the floor, so a lot of furniture was stacked there. But the floors are in poor condition as well. So when we started, we took documents of the existing conditions, and then we came up with 2 potential options that would address each of those goals that we had. Option A moved the coach's room out front and created a single bathroom and shower area, and then created more single-user toilet rooms, 2 for the public, and then 2 that might have changing areas with them for students. For non-gender students. And then within the locker rooms themselves, we had improved lockers, improved bathroom areas, improved visibility within the locker rooms. So if you came in the door, these would be 3/4, so you could hear what's happening within the locker room, sort of helping that safety issue. And then you would have more access to the bathrooms within the locker room, so they weren't immediately when you walk in the door. Option B was similar within the locker rooms, but what we did was we put the coach's office on the side so that they could watch this area here that was out in front, so they would have their eyes sort of on who was coming and going within the locker rooms. And then the 2 public rooms would be closer to the front entrance. As we presented those and moved through, option B became the preferred option because it addressed a lot of the visibility as well as gave us accessible toilet rooms that were out front and not embedded closer to the locker rooms, creating a safer situation when there were events going on. And then as we moved forward, we realized that the showers weren't being used often, and we had 2 non-gender changing rooms, and we were trying to find ways to reduce the cost of this project at that point in time. So we went back to the original floor plan and tried to find ways to use some of the existing spaces. What we did at that point was we kept the coaches' rooms and the coaches' bathrooms and showers all within the same place, but then created a non-gender changing room behind the coaches area. So the coaches would still have visibility about who was coming into the hallways, but not, they wouldn't, but the changing rooms wouldn't be so far up front. We also had a family bathroom at the front, and then the public restrooms were immediately off the coaches' hallways. We put that out for cost estimate, and when they came back, we were still a little bit high. Oops, sorry. Here's our 89. We had 89 lockers for each student, as well as showers back here. We were still a little bit high, and when we went back and talked to the teachers, they really came back to us and said, we don't need showers. The 8th graders, the 5th through 8th graders aren't taking showers prior to gym. And the only people who were taking showers were the coaches and the PE instructors. Sorry, forgot to click a few times there. So we came up with our final option for pricing and did some value engineering from that last option. The value engineering removed the family bathroom. What we decided was that the women's and the men's bathrooms could serve as family bathrooms if we had baby changing stations within them. We had kept the toilet fixtures where they are currently and just updated the sinks and removed the showers back here. We kept our gender neutral changing room with lockers within it, but removed the shower. And then we increased the number of changing areas within the locker rooms. So from here, we also went back and took a look at our cost estimates and reduced some of the materials that we're using. Instead of VCT flooring, we changed it to an epoxy floor. We reduced the amount of tile we were putting on the walls to bring down some of that cost. And we took a closer look at the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems and reduce some of those costs, thinking that if we could keep some of those systems in place without a wholesale replacement of those, we could save some cost with that. And so that's where we ended with our design. I don't know if I'm gonna turn it over to Barry, I guess, to talk about some of the costs that we had at that time.
Sure, I don't have anything to, well, I guess I do have the cost. Do you have the cost estimates, Michelle, handy?
What I have here behind us is some of the value engineering, but I can bring up those cost estimates as well. So
yeah,
that's really hard for you guys to see. Hang on one second. Let me end that.
George, do you have your hand up or is that left over?
No, I'm sorry.
No problem. Just want to make sure.
So this is probably easier to see. So when our cost estimates came back originally, we were at the 1.3 million. And after we did our value engineering, we were close, we were under 9. That did not include our design work, but we actually just spoke to PMNC, and since we went out for cost estimating, he has told us that there's been an increase of about 5%. So what we had at just under 9 is now about 940, 950. And with the updated design work, even with that value engineering, you'd be at about 1.18.
so that's a little bit new right now. The article went in for 1,064,000, and that included our contingency and construction oversight. So we're just gonna have to update Cecilia to see where we want to go with this. And I mean, this, just so everybody kind of knows the genesis of this, like when I first started here a bunch of years ago, when I walked into these locker rooms, they were in terrible condition, and I endeavored to, to take on this project. And in the beginning, it was when we first got a few estimates, and this is before we put out the RFQ in, I think it was May of last year, we got a couple estimates coming in at like $600,000. And that's, at that point, we're like, okay, we definitely have to do an RFQ. And Dorn Woody was awarded the contract. We put design money aside under a different PO for that portion of it, and the rest of the construction oversight would be inside of the actual construction money. I don't know if that's peeled out in detail, but so I mean that's a little bit new there. And some of the other things that when we realized the estimate was over $1 million, and I was told that this is probably going to be a tier 2 funded project, which from what I understand is that those usually don't get funded. And then it ended up on the warrant article. So I was like, hey, all right, we're going to push this through and see if we can't get something done in this locker room, because, I don't think those pictures do it justice. We have done work in these bathrooms, and it just doesn't last. That the substrates are falling apart as well. The moisture issues in the bathrooms, the ceilings, the floors, the toilets, the bathrooms themselves. So with that said, I'm not quite sure. Honestly, we're going to need to talk to Cecilia and kind of get her back into the discussion, especially if there's this 5% increase. But this is where we are right now. This was already presented to FinCom. They seemed to be okay with it. They didn't have an opposition to it.
I think that Barry, you indicated that there was a separate prior warrant article that has sufficient funding to continue the design through construction administration. That wasn't part of the numbers that were shown. And yet we all know that cost escalation is occurring.
Yeah.
And I guess the risk here is having to go back to town meeting to request additional funding. I'm not sure you can value engineer it much more, but I don't do the girls' side now and do the boys' side later or something.
I think we can. We can probably sit down and just review it. One more time. I can sit down with Michelle and kind of go back through the program. I know that again, part of the estimates previously, I didn't really talk to the schools. I said, I'm just going to renovate the footprint, and that's it. I'm going to give them a new facility. I'm not changing anything. But rightly so, we involved the schools and asked them, and that's when we started talking about some of the uses of the space for the foreseeable future. We have to think about these things and take into consideration that having gender neutral spaces, more changing rooms, so people actually feel comfortable to go into these lockers and use them, so they're not exposed to everybody and some of the kids that might feel uncomfortable. So that, that wasn't taken into consideration in the beginning. I just wanted to give them a new locker room. And we ended up taking that into consideration, which did change the entire scope of the project. But it's something that will last. I mean, this isn't just, this isn't a 5-year, this is easily 15, 20-year design and can fit into the master plan once we execute that.
Don?
I wonder, and you guys have already been talking about this with the earlier projects, but the market is just upside down right now with where it's going. We don't know how much it's going to continue up, it's going to level off, it's going to settle down. We do have the opportunity here, since this is supposed to be a summer 23 construction project, to bid this sometime before that. And if the numbers come in fine, terrific, we're off to the races. If not, we can set this up to go back to, I guess, next spring's meeting with a hand seeking funds. So you do have time on your side in that respect.
Hank?
I guess the other question is whether this project remains with the building maintenance department or whether it comes over to our department. And I know in prior renovations in the bathrooms, for instance, they exceeded the threshold of $500,000, but at that time, PPBC indicated that you were comfortable with having building maintenance proceed with the project just reporting back. And I don't think we need that answer tonight, but it should be considered in the future as to how to approach it.
Erwin?
Yeah, just a quick question. Since there's a lot of future work being anticipated for Pollard, are we fairly confident that this work would not kind of be subsumed by some future work?
Michelle, you want to handle that one?
Yeah. So, depending on the direction that you choose for the master plan, we know that you've already invested in the gymnasiums. Both of the gymnasiums have been renovated recently. The locker rooms with an eye towards more changing spaces, more private spaces for students, gender neutral capacities, as well as the renovations of the bathrooms up front, the more public bathrooms. I think that those would be viable renovations for a future, that would take you into the future. So they would not have to be redone once you redid the building. The only piece that I'm hesitating on right now is just the HVAC system. Depending on where we go with the HVAC system, whether or not that would have to be updated. Fortunately, the locker rooms are currently sprinklered, so it does fall into one of the areas of the building that does have a sprinkler system. So you're not investing in that right now at that time. The rest of the building would need to be upgraded in a future renovation.
Thank you.
So it sounds like there is that question on the table, but we do not have to answer it today. And I might suggest if there's any other questions or comments regarding this update, we address the go forward at the next meeting or the weekend meeting afterwards. Okay. I presume that the select board is going to go over that warrant article on Wednesday too. Do we know?
Are you aware?
I am not.
Okay. I'm just asking because I don't know if they would be asking us what our opinion is about managing it. But if that's not the case, I'll pause on the carrying the conversation further. Anything more on this, Hank?
No, that's the last I had.
Okay.
And we will be going to select board on Wednesday.
Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll close that down. Thanks to the user group and the architects. Appreciate the update. And with that, we're at the end of our main topics for the meeting tonight. I would just want to bring up two topics. One is we did have the Nuwari conversation last time. I'd like to suggest that we put it in the agenda or make it as a other business item. Next one, I think the perspective I gained is that we still have some more conversations to go. And it's a continuous discussion. I think with the way the topic works, and it's not just a one and done, force a decision and be done. So that's why I'm going to suggest if anybody else has another opinion or commentary, that we just cover it in the next meeting. We continue to work on it as best we can to get somewhere.
A comment. I
ahead,
have not completed my attempt at a draft, but I will try to get that out about 2 weeks, about a week before the next meeting, so that we all have it to chew on, so we can be as efficient as possible in the upcoming meeting.
Okay. Great. I only have one other topic, and that is I do have to be out of the country next meeting. So I'd like to ask, Richard, if you could chair the next meeting. And we just have to make sure we get a quorum. I don't know if there's any major topics that we have, Hank, that are coming on the docket.
Well, we will have the hillside bids in hand by that next meeting, and we would want PVBC to review and accept them. We wouldn't be able to award until after town meeting.
Okay.
And also, Stuart, a reminder that we are requesting the emergency preamble to the warrant article. We didn't discuss, but the parallel warrant article number 22 associated with the heating at Hillside is also very important to get approval, and that would be that charge would be led by building maintenance, as we discussed at our last meeting.
Okay, great. So that's all I ask is if Richard, you could chair the next meeting as vice chair, and then if we can make sure we get a quorum, because I'll not be available at this stage. And that's
Sure.
it. Yeah, go ahead.
One other item, schedule wise. My employer is probably going to be going to a hybrid situation in May. It's not definite. I actually heard some rumblings today that it might be pushed back, but I know we had talked about continuing on with the 7 o'clock start time for these meetings as long as they were held on Zoom. That might be problematic for me going forward, depending upon how my work schedule plays out, because I do commute into Boston when I am in Boston. So I just simply note that I might request the committee's indulgence at some point to reconsider the 7 o'clock start time in favor of 7:30 start time for these meetings. And again, nothing definite at the moment, but it's a possibility in May, starting in May.
Okay. All right, we should make sure we address that as we get closer. Either that or you get to camp out in Boston and, for Zoom and then jump on the later train.
Right.
But anyways, all right, no, fair point. I think that's something we may have to address as we move forward. Okay, if there's nothing else from the committee, I would look to close the meeting. And I see that I have quorum. Good with that? All right. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Night.